Good morning, traders and investors around the world, and welcome to Friday's edition of premarketinfo.com, where we prepare you for the most important hour of the day. Well, it looks like we have some market participants anticipating a good unemployment number, Dennis.
Some people are definitely jumping the gun. We're up 16 points before the number here, Joel, so it'll be interesting to see what happens at 8:30. Obviously, the big driver this morning is the European banks once again. They're all up significantly here this morning. We've even got stocks like Barclays, BCS, which is trading up 80 cents, $11 stock. So you're talking about an 8% move on Barclays. All these European banks look very strong. U.S. financials will probably be strong as well.
Okay, moving on to the Big Ten, the biggest of the 10, Apple, trading up smartly here, about $3, making a high overnight here at $391.88. Just want to alert our listeners to the $391.14 level. That was the high back on November 16th. Currently had traded above it, but that will be significant resistance. Really opens up after that until the $397 area. Coming back on the downside, need to hold Thursday's high at 389 in order to keep the rally intact. Also minor support at the close at 387.93.
Yeah, Apple at 391. It's interesting, even in the pre-market, it's kind of keeping a cap on it. It's just been trading here, for the last hour, right below that 391 area. So that is going to provide some resistance. And I think you're right. Above that, it starts to open up. So we always talk, they give you, how do you play these? Well, there's kind of a couple ways you can play it. You could try to short it out this area thinking that 391 is going to hold. But if it get a 391.5, 392 area, you probably want to cover those shorts, and then it opens up to that 397, 400 area. So you could try to play it for that breakout there into, to try to pick up that 5 or 6 points as it's got that little bit of air in there. So that's kind of the two ways that you could play it. Obviously, you want to use tight stops both ways. If you're going to get long through that 391, it starts to trade through the 390 on you again, then you might have to think about covering. It's all risk management. That's what trading really is.
Okay, ExxonMobil, after struggling yesterday, staying in a real tight range, is busting above the 80.35 to 53 level. That was Wednesday's and Thursday's highs. Use that 80.50 as a swing number. If I can't hold that area, I'm looking for 82.20, which was the high back at the end of October. Interestingly, we haven't traded above 80. Well, we just did. We got to trade at 80.72 in the pre-market. So keep an eye on that 80.50 level as well as the close at 79.79.
Yeah, it's always tricky to do these shows when we're, before a big number, because that unemployment number is going to come out and the stocks are going to bounce all over the place here. But right now, before this number, 80.50, it does look like a little bit of resistance. You can look up to that 82 area. Where it is that top? Can you get that exact price there from October, Joel?
Just looking 82.20 on October 27th.
That 82.20 area, if for whatever reason this number is, real good, we end up like 30 points or something again, then that number might come into play. So that would be your next big resistance point. Above that, and it opens right up, that would be a huge move for ExxonMobil. So, at the top end, I'm looking at that 82.20 as resistance.
Okay, we're going to have an interesting open here in the IBM. Currently trading above that major resistance at 190. It also did tick above the all-time high here at 190.63 in the pre-market. Currently trading at 190.34. There's only been, a couple thousand shares that have traded in the pre-market above that 190 level. Dennis, how you gonna play with that seller? Is he still there at 190, or do you move his order?
No, he's still there. So that's liquidity in the New York book, which becomes active at 9:30. There's 100,000 shares there. If for whatever reason we open up probably on the SPUs less than 15 points, and this is only traded 10,000 shares or something, pre-market's only traded a couple thousand now, but if it's only traded 10,000 by about then, that 190 will probably put a cap on it. I'd be shocked if it opens over that. If the SPUs rally and we're up 25, 30 points, then that 190 will probably open above that. But keep an eye, that's where that key number is for this stock. That is still resistance even at 9:30, even though despite it's trading a little bit above it in the pre-market, with a few shares. That doesn't mean that much. It all depends on where this market opens. So the play would still be to sell in that 189 area if we don't open up that much in the market overall.
Okay, if you are going to go into that 190 as a buyer, remember you got the 190.53 as the all-time high, as well as on the downside, you got a stock like IBM. If it gets below that close at 189.45, might be time to hit the exits. Okay, moving on to Mr. Softy, kind of a tight range in that stock yesterday as well. Interesting formation. You have Wednesdays and Thursdays highs here, Dennis, right at 25.58 to 63. So here's another stock in the pre-market not trading up as much relative to the S&Ps. We bust through that double top. We should test the 10-day high at 26.06. Coming back on the downside, you should find support at the close as well as Wednesday and Thursday's lows. The lows are at 25.14 to 20 and the close at 25.28.
It's interesting, Microsoft, because you've had a lot of the tech stocks that have really taken off. Google's been your leader. That thing just keeps marching higher. Apple's now, approaching its old resistance levels. IBM is right at its old resistance level. And Microsoft really hasn't participated that much. Like if you look, we were 24.30 when this huge, we're up a buck. Maybe $1.20 from when, the SPUs were bottoming, in the 1160 area, which is 100 points ago. So this has been relatively weak, this stock. I don't know if, what the reasoning is for that, but, you've got to always, take note when stocks are relatively weak like that. I think you're right. I think you're going to see some resistance in this 25.63 area, which was yesterday's high. Gets above that, it could open up to the 26 area, but there should be resistance there too.
Okay, Chevron Corporation just snuck above Wednesday's high, which was 102.82, and got to 103. That kind of put a cap on the rally yesterday, closing at 101.83. We'll use that 101.83 as support, minor support, better support coming in at 196, which is Thursday's low. If we bust through the 103, Dennis, I do see a high at 103.42, so if you're looking for a scalp off that 103 level, I'd get some orders out in the mid 103s. If in fact we bust through that 103.42 level, Dennis, I don't see much up there until the November 15th high, 107.33.
You could see a little stopping point at 105, but yeah, a lot of air everywhere in Chevron. This is one I'm not comfortable trading. I've talked about this 100 area giving some support, which could, if we had a major pullback, we're at 102.50 right, and that's going to pull. That's the only kind of trade I could really, justify because I could kind of control the risk on that. Selling this thing, the major resistance is up at 110, so you say 107, so you have that level. But I don't know. I'm scared to sell this thing.
Okay, J&J, kind of a quiet day in that stock as well yesterday. Only settling a dime above the low of the day. We're getting a little pop in it now. 64.95 was yesterday's high. We're currently trading at 64.99, topped out at 65.16 in the pre-market. I'd say that resistance at 65. The thing is, if you get to that 65 area, you're running into a double top from November 14th and 15th. Above that, it might open up closer to the 66 level. Coming back on the downside, let's look for a real good support at the close and Thursday's low, 64.45 and 64.35.
Yeah, there is 100,000 shares offered at 65, so that's backing up that resistance. We topped out at 64.95 yesterday. Hey, Joel, I made the journal, actually. I sold at 64.95 yesterday. So I got lucky on that one. Obviously, the scalper that I am, I covered way too soon. I think I ended up covering at 64.69. So I got a little bit of a move off it, but actually, it's not very often you get to sell the high, so I'm patting myself on the back for that one. I didn't even know it until I just looked at the high yesterday, but anyways, so I continue to be a seller in the 90s. If that 65 holds, 65 guy goes, then I get out. So that's the way I'm controlling the risk on this one.
Okay, Procter & Gamble, another stock that kind of closed near the low of the day, 63.87 low, 64.08 close, so that should be a real good support. Coming on the upside, kind of a quiet day. We did get through Wednesday's high, but not by much. Currently trading in between, or just below Wednesday's high, which was 64.59. 64.79 will be our resistance point. Look out if you get long through there. You're still going to run into 65.03, which was the high on October 28th. Above that, it opens up to the 65.70 level. So spotty resistance here in Procter & Gamble in the higher 65s.
Yeah, there is some size though at 65 too, so expect resistance as those high frequency guys comes in. They'll lean in the 90s. You'll see some resistance starting probably in the 64.80s. So that's where you can control some risk if you're trying to short. Not a bad area to try it above 65. Then you got to cover, similar to the Johnson & Johnson play.
Okay, AT&T flirted with the $29 level yesterday. Dennis making a double top at $28.98. Pulling back, but not by much, settling at $28.84, so that should be our support. 29, we'll use that as our swing number. If we can hold 29, I'd look at to test this 29.32 to 37 level, which was a high back on November 14th and the 15th.
There has been some resistance there at 29, so I think that will give you a little bit again, obviously, depending on what the market does. Major resistance on this at 29.5.
Okay, GE banging on the door of that $16 level. We can always roll the tape from the last few months. Now we are trading smartly above 16, or just a dime. Let's call 16 to be our support here and our swing number. Breaking through the 16 level. Minor resistance is 16.32, but if this stock really has some hop today, I could see the 16.47 level coming into play.
I'm going to limit my comments just because I do have a trading position on in GE.
Okay. Coca-Cola, the last of the Big Ten, kind of a quiet day yesterday, making a high at 67.96. Making a high yesterday at 67.58. The previous day's high 67.96. So good resistance all the way up to that 68 area. Coming back on the downside. Interestingly, here's another stock closed just off the low of the day, 66.83, with the close and a double bottom at 66.68 to 72. So excellent support at 66.80 area, resistance at 68.
See a little bit of size at 67.5. 68. So again, 68 is your major resistance on this. Play that similar to the PG, J&J, the high frequency guys probably in the 90s. Some of your more aggressive guys might be offering in the 80s. So that's where your major resistance will start on this stock.
Okay, folks, that's a wrap of the Big Ten. Of course, things can change very quickly with the unemployment number. Just to keep an eye out, the upside target on the day from that 42.75 low will be 72.25. A target off the 62 high would be 32.25. Just looking at the numbers, folks, don't see much up to 12.75 as this rally continues. Conversely, coming back, minor support at Thursday's high at 51. That's our show. We'll wait for these unemployment numbers to shake out, and we'll be back with many of our market movers.